Hello, everybody. I am Allison Lane. I'm the host of Creative Nonfiction Community. And if you are new or watching this for the first time or have been around lurking, but you haven't attended one of our compassionate critique sessions or the live Q&As, the strategy sessions that we do, or any of the workshops, you're missing out because it's free. We are a community of 1,200 writers, all somewhere in the journey, published, agented, self-published, hybrid published, not agented, but published, on the way, just starting out, just figuring out what kind of paper we like there's everyone. So wherever you are, you're starting in the right place. If you're wondering if it's okay to lurk, it is. It's fine. We like lurkers. Sometimes you need to lurk for a while before you get ready to jump in. It's totally cool. If you want support in anything, the rule is you have to ask for what you want. Don't ask, don't get. It's like life's rule. So ask for what you need and then share what you know. If you learn something, even if it's, hey, I found out that this agent is a schmagent, that's lingo for not a real agent, or this media outlet closed, or this publisher is asking for submissions, or I found this app that's awesome and it's free because we like free. You share it. You share how you know it, why you think it's important. If there's a link, share the link. People will read and appreciate the insight and your perspective. They will not go to a link unless you share some commentary. If your commentary in a post is, hey, thought I'd share this, I delete those. I just do. Nobody reads them, and it ruins your cred, like your group cred. So we don't want that. Can everybody see the transcript? Because I have it enabled because I'm on my laptop. So I'm just making sure, because this is important. Accessibility is important to us. Okay, so Deb thank you, Deb. Hi, Deb. I would love to come on your sailboat after I can stand up without and sit down without pain, because I threw my back out yesterday and now I have to. It's from sitting on my ass, like
you don't want to be on a sailboat.
Yeah, the life of an editor is like not moving. Like there's not a lot of movement, and the whole like get up and walk around, like but then I can't work. Like I'm in the flow. That's what we do. Like I'll get up and move around if I have to.
Try a standing desk.
Yeah, it's my
when my back feels tight, there's a couple of shelves in my house that are just the right height, and I put my laptop there and I stand up. It makes a big difference.
Yeah, I was going to do that. I was going to take all my books down and do that, but there wasn't time, and I was like, whatever. Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm going to jump in because many people submitted questions, and then we'll take live questions, or we'll do them. Some of the people who submitted in advance can't be here, so that's why they submitted. So I think it's helpful. And I drew some insights and some like questions from people who are asking questions in the thread, but they might not have registered to get this link. So if you have a friend who you invited to the group, but they have jumped in, if they want to get the links to any of these live events, they have to register. You just need to register one time, just so what that tells me is we have permission to email you, because it's polite, we used to just like provide the links, but here's the thing: every time Zoom sneezes or like has a hiccup or says we're going to make things better for you, what that does is it breaks the link for me. And then what happens is that you go to a different link, and then people are DMing me during the webinar saying, I can't get on. I'm like, well, that's because you went to the wrong link, and it's confusing for everybody. So this is hopefully going to be better. And it allows us to have, you know, when I am not available, it allows other people to come in and use their Zoom. So we're trying to be flexible. This is an all volunteer situation. I was about to say organization, but it's not even. It's like, it's homegrown. Can you tell I'm looking at myself, but I don't mean to. I just want to make sure that I'm not standing in shadow. Okay, I want to start today by congratulating all the wins on Brag Day, and all the folks saying, hey, no, first of all, if you have a win, here's what a win looks like. I cracked the code. I wrote for 15 minutes. I figured out my hook. That's your personal win. It could be I pitched an agent and I got a request. It could be my publisher didn't tear apart my first draft manuscript. It could be I pitched media. I pitched 10,000 media and I got one yes. That's a yes. It's a door opener, right? So whatever your win is, we want to know it. And we want to know what you learned along the way. So share it in the Brag Day thread. That's on Sundays, and you can choose any which one. But, you know, I post that on Sundays. And then if you feel like it, post it a second time as an original post. If it's, you know, if you have like a big learning or a big aha or a big insight, we want to know. If your book gets published and you want to say, hey, not only is my book published, but I want to share the 3 things I would do differently. And I think everyone should know when in preparation for your pub date. Please post that and the link. So some people, they post their lesson, but then I have to say, you forgot to share the link to your book. Or they just post the link to their book and they don't tell us anything about it. And those I have to delete because that's just the rules, and the rules that I made up and Mona and Candace contributed to, which is if you post a link, it's like throwing a brick into my grill, and it hurts and it makes me not want to read your stuff anymore. So that's why we do that. People don't like it. We're all about engagement, right? So a couple of things that I wanted to address this week, actually like 10. First, I'm seeing a lot of pitches and people getting yeses. You know, when you pitch media, there are 3 different types of media. And I was sharing this with a client who's in the Buzzworthy Lab. Hi, Ann. Oh, hi, Kim. I haven't seen you in a long time. So I was sharing this with a member of the Buzzworthy Lab. That's my small group intensive. And she was saying, you know, I got this placed, but it's little. I'm like, no. You think it's little because your quote in this article it's not all about you. But here's why her piece is more credible than anything else she could have achieved, because she pitched Upworthy, which is has a big readership. Upworthy, you should all look at it. In order to pitch that, she used Haro, which is free. Free is good. Haro is help a reporter out. So a reporter, a journalist from Upworthy.com, which is digital, said, I'm looking for, you know, people, experts through, you know, education or experts through experience to talk about blah, 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 her topic. And she asked me, am I an expert? I'm like, yes, you're an expert through your experience. So I don't care if you have a degree that says you're an expert psychologist, or you've come to become, you know, you've become an expert in the human experience through coaching or leading retreats or whatever else. So she provided some perspective in what is actually a roundup story. So when your perspective is included in a roundup story in a broad publication like Upworthy or Parents Magazine, broad, what happens is you are grouped along with the other voices in that article. And that article is not like entertainment, it is news, it's content. It might be, edutainment, like it's a little bit educating, it's a little bit entertainment. But when you're grouped in an article with opposing views, where a journalist plucked your tidbit, your insight, your perspective out of multiple submissions, usually many submissions, you've crossed over into a situation where you've checked the box on achieving third-party credibility, because someone that you didn't pay and who has a high level of criteria has accepted your perspective, and that is how you achieve credibility. So that is a big effing deal. So that's number one. Number two are service pieces. So for instance, Deb is a writing coach, Deb Morgan, and offers query assessments and coaching through Grub Street, which you should all get Grub Street's newsletter. It is free. I think I'm going to get like a button that says it's free. And if Deb wrote a service piece about, in fact, I think Deb, you wrote this recently, 4 reasons why publishers aren't biting on your book, or something like that.
I'm submitting something. It's called 8 Reasons Why We Reject.
Yeah.
It's about for a literary magazine. So.
Right. But Deb is the editor of a literary magazine. So she is offering insight, and it's a service piece, right? So she is the voice of authority for the piece, and she's submitting it to a different magazine, not her own. But goodness, that is credible, because she's still having to cross that threshold where someone else who is not a friend and she's not paying, and it's not herself, is saying her content is worth sharing with our readership or our audience. So that's the second type of media coverage. The third is like a personal essay, and you see a lot of these in the Huffington Post or Thrive Global or like Mama Load or Romper, Vox. If any of you are familiar with the Netflix limited series Made, that by Stephanie Land, which is my favorite memoir of last year. And if you haven't read it, you should. That book came about because Stephanie Land wrote a first-person essay about how your hired help knows you better than anyone, but you don't know their name. And it was an essay, it went viral. But what I'm saying is that her experience she put into a personal essay, it still had to be accepted to a media outlet, and boom. If she had just put that on her blog, 800 people would have seen it. And it's not as credible, even though the writing would have been the same. So when you're pitching and you're thinking about like what is going to hit for me, pick a potpourri of 2 personal essays, maybe 2 service pieces. Make sure that some journalists know that you're available as a contributor, or for background. I mean, these are all ways that you can pitch it and stick it. And this is from a career publicist. I ran brand PR for global brands, which I know some of you already know this, for, where's my bird speeds? Somebody swipe it, motherfucker. I think my daughter's swinging my Burt's Bees. Anyway, for Burt's Bees, The Body Shop, Unilever. If anybody's heard of a body spray called Axe, I launched that in the US with, who was at that party who I danced with? Mackay Pfeiffer, who was lovely. And, you know, he brought 2 dates to the party, but he danced with me. So, and Johns Hopkins. And so I'm telling you that there is always a hook. There are 15 angles to tell any story we want to talk about. If you want to talk about, you know, why people are getting rejected, their pitches are getting rejected, there are at least 15 different angles to tell that story. So Deb has an opportunity to tell this story over and over again, but in different ways. And Deb, you and I can talk about that, another time. So I want to congratulate everybody who's taking the leap and believing in their message, believing in their lesson, using this forum to get input on your pitches. If you're not doing this, you need to. Post your draft pitch as an original post in the discussion and say, hey, does anybody have any suggestions? Or, hey, I'm sharing this because it worked for me and I want to be able to, share it out. Here's a template I now use. Just ask, because we want, like, vulnerability builds commitment. And the more you ask, the more we love you, and each other, right? So we can only get better when we ask for getting better. Okay, enough of that. Someone asked recently that they had heard that self-publishing, the conventional wisdom for self-publishing is that you need to hire a developmental editor to scrub and polish and work on your manuscript before you self-publish. And I wanted to address that because everyone thinks that their words are gold. And they are, but more so probably your message is gold. Your story is gold. But everyone needs a backup. Like everyone needs a safety net, right? So do you need a developmental editor? I don't know. I can tell you that I have Candace read my work a lot. And Candace is like, I don't know, I think she popped up. She's in Alaska. And I asked Mona for a lot of input. Like, do you think we should do this workshop or that workshop? What do you think people need? What do they want? How can we help? I don't make all those decisions by myself. It'd be lonely and weird. So do you need an editor? Maybe you need a critique partner who's a really good copy editor. Maybe you need to think of your work as going along some stepping stones. You draft, you revise it again, you get input, big stroke input from 2 critique partners, then you revise it again, then you get, detailed input on your first pages from a critique partner, and then you revise. Then you have somebody scrub it. Yeah, Deb.
Okay, I have to jump off at 12:30 because I have another meeting to get to, but I wasn't going to say anything, but since we're talking about critique, I'm doing a talk next week on processing critique. And what in the last couple of weeks, as I've been thinking about critique, what I've come to, I always knew this, but now I actually have it on paper, is that critique isn't really just about swapping pages. Yeah. It's like saying, you have, there's so much that goes into it before you even do that to make sure that you're getting helpful and useful and not harmful critique. Mm-hmm. So I kind of have this framework for it. It's like the process of critique before processing critique, because there's a lot of stuff that you can do wrong before you even pass your pages along that will make it harder for you. So I'm gonna talk about that next Wednesday. So just thought I'd throw that in there, because critique is, I made a lot of mistakes along the way and caused myself a lot of unnecessary hurt because it's hurt. This stuff, it's close to our heart, and you can do things to protect yourself and be in a better place to get what you actually need. So that's all.
So true. So all of you will get the invite to the workshop that Deb's, or the webinar that Deb's running in this group next week called Processing Feedback. And it's not just how you react to the feedback is, if in modern marketing, there's a saying called, garbage in, garbage out. So if you ask for garbage, if you don't filter what you actually are looking for and what actually will be actionable, you're going to just end up where you were. And Deb's going to walk through that process, how you can protect yourself. It's going to be phenomenal. And thank you, Deb, for offering that to everyone. Other things that people always ask, almost every week, everyone's always wrestling with their website. What should I put on my website? I'm designing my website. How much should I spend on my website? Oh my goodness. You should not spend anything on your website. You should watch the free YouTube webinar the free webinar that I did in this group that's called Websites for Writers. I will post it in the chat, and I will post it next week in the discussion thread, because all you need is one page. I mean, if you don't have a website today, one page. You don't need 3 pages. Don't hire a designer to decide what your spirit color is. It's not necessary. Don't do it yourself. Don't sketch out here's what I'm envisioning. It's not a house. It's just use the framework. There are free website platforms. Wix is one of them. If you want to upgrade, you can, but no one is thinking about that. It's on your website. You need what you do and maybe some of your work and how to reach you. The how to reach you is the most important thing. That's it. That's all. I'm going to address that, with sharing the webinar again. Sita, you asked to ask a question, so I just wanted to have you come on.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm in the middle of working on my website. I've built them before, so it's always different when you're the product. It's the ones that I've built before were for other products or for my recipes. And I'm wondering about plugging in a Twitter link, because I'm active on Twitter, and not in for the writer community, not for all of what Twitter can possibly be. And we'd gotten some, there'd been some info. It helps. Am I wrong? Does it help with updating content? Especially on something like a new author page like I have, where there's not content to update because it's not a blog. I'm not selling anything on it because I'm looking to query currently, so that it hasn't transitioned over to that yet.
Yeah.
Would that help keep adding new content? Would that plugin help, or am I misinformed?
I think what you're asking is, should you insert a widget onto your homepage that draws in your Twitter feed so that visitors to your webpage will see your Twitter feed?
Yeah.
Okay. And they're not the audience for your Twitter feed. Your web visitors, you don't think those will be the audience for those are people who like you, right?
Well, yeah, no, and I just wasn't, I've never done, when I backed out of marketing 3 years ago now. So I'm just, it's a new widget, it wasn't something, it's changed in real time. And, I was looking at the Instagram widget as well. And I guess I own, and they had recommended it on another platform we're all part of it for their website piece as well. And I just didn't know if there was any downside that I was potentially missing. I mean, I'm really just writer community on both of those platforms, writing and
Yeah.
social community. So it's I I guess I don't. Is it a silly question? I'm sorry. I don't mean
No,
to.
it's not silly at all. It's actually really important because people like to draw in everything and they forget that, if your website is your home base, right? So people are coming to your website from a lot of different places. They could meet you in the Manuscript Academy, right? And then they say like, oh, I'm going to go to our website. They don't know, they don't already follow you on Twitter. And if you put it in the footnote, it doesn't tell them what they're going to get on Twitter. So it makes a lot of sense because you are an active member of the writer community and Twitter's your place. Also, Facebook's your place. So decide, pick one and put it in there. It's totally fine. I am not sportsy, but this is a fly fishing metaphor. So when you are standing in a river runs through it, right? When you're Brad Pitt and the river is running through it and they're just fly fishing, you're just standing there, you're Brad Pitt, and you are standing there bringing people back to your site. And however they come to you, they need to want to come. When they get there, you want to make sure not that you send them away, like follow me on Twitter. You want to give them something in exchange for them showing up and engaging, because otherwise, why will they ever come back to your site again, right? So it could be just a one-page downloadable that you can make free on Canva. Free is good. Canva has these templates. Just provide that. 3 marketing lessons that I now apply to my writing. And here's what you can do. I mean, I'm making that up, but
No, and I'm pretty lucky because I've created a food blog, so with a bunch of recipes already published, and so I was going to hyperlink that as one of the posts, and that could be something that links the 2 sites together without.
You mean that links to your blog and your website together?
Well, yes, because I have them as 2 separate entities. I started a blog a while ago before I even started on the book, and kept the 2 as separate.
Oh, okay.
I in hindsight, I probably shouldn't have. I wasn't, it wasn't the best. Sometimes we're always backfilling in strategies. Not everything starts with a 5-year plan, although it should. That's my personality type.
I think that rather than embedding, I think that there's a way to use a vanity URL that connects your website to your blog so that people don't feel like they're going to a separate place. And anything that you get published, make sure that you link to that external site wherever it is, and that platform is linked to your site, because that will, behind the scenes, increase your searchability.
Yeah, that's the other thing I'll have to, it's
So you just reach out and say, hey, I want to share this so that I could be linking to you and you could be linking to me. It also increases their searchability. So it's a win-win for everybody. Yes, add the widget. That was your question. So
that was, yes. And thank you for that. And hopefully that helps answer some other people's questions too, because there was a lot in there. So thank you.
Well, these are questions everybody has. And this is probably a good time to say, if you have a question, first of all, you can email it to team@AllisonLaneLiterary.com. But also, if you have a question and you're nervous about asking it, just know that at least 10 other people have the same question or the same problem or the same, priority, and they want to talk about it too. So, you can, if you're not comfortable coming on camera, you can stay behind camera, or you can email us and we'll get it and make sure it gets addressed. Okay, I'm getting a lot of questions about how do I sell more books, or how do I prepare for my book launch? And I want to address something that publishers aren't telling you in advance is that your book launch, the day your book is up and when the people press order, it actually will send. That is not the time, that is not the go date. The go date is the day your pre-order link is available. And that's usually, that could be 2 to 6 months before your pub date. And here's why. When publishers are measuring success and when retailers are making orders for which books to have in store versus not, they look at the pre-orders, the pre-order numbers. When you hope to get on a list of any sort, they look at pre-orders. So when you're planning your book launch, you have to back out from your pre-order link date. This is true if you're self-publishing or just know that, I'm going to go ahead and put up the pre-orders and let my family know. Like, no, who cares about your family? So you sell 13 copies. We want the world to have the pre-order and that pre-orders beget pre-orders, So, and it'll like, oh my gosh, the confidence you'll get, the relief, but also that's the go date. So how do you sell more books? That's different than how do you launch your book. How do you sell more books? Well, you have to sell more you, because you are the brand and your book is the product. And people have to trust you before and want to understand that what they're going to get from you before they buy your book. All lip balms are almost entirely the same. But I bet everybody on this call has an opinion. Do you like Carmex? Do you like Vaseline? Do you like Nivea? Do you like chapstick? Say no, because it's just full of wax. And do you like Burt's Bees? Say yes, because that is what I marketed. But these are they're all made from essentially something smooth, beeswax, or sometimes honey, sometimes plastic like petroleum jelly, Vaseline. You don't want to put that on your face, but you have an opinion. Which one do you trust? So how do you sell more books? It's not about the book, it's about you. So when you're thinking, I want to promote my book, like, that's fine. That's the easy part, promoting your book, but nobody cares about your book unless they know about you. And this is something I preach a lot in the Buzzworthy Lab. I'm going to preach a lot all year long. I'm going to be sharing a lot more about this in terms of how to define what you write about versus this is one book, because after this book, there's going to be the next book or the next article. So you know who does this great? Aileen Weintraub. She's written a bunch of, she wrote We Got Game. She wrote a bunch of middle grade nonfiction books. And then her memoir, which is totally different, which is called Knocked Down, a High Risk Memoir. I think I have it here. Oh yeah, I do. This, here we go. Knocked Down, a High Risk Memoir. It is incredible, right? So when you look at it, you're like, oh, it's a pink book. Do I want to read it? I don't know. So I was talking to Aileen, and we're friendly. I advised her like a hair. Okay. But what I said was, stop looking for reviews. No, the publishing world thinks that reviews are the cat's meow, but really you need to broaden your awareness. And so what she did, you need to provide content, not excerpts. Don't sell me on your book by giving me a sample of your book. Sell me on your book by giving me a sample of you. So because of that, she's been writing essays and news pieces and contributing to roundup stories that are about the themes of her book without being lifted from her book. So we'll talk more about that. Yes, Anne, you have to unmute yourself. Hold on, let me try and unmute you. I'm going to ask you. Oh, there you go.
My question sort of lines up with what you were just talking about, and that is, I want to have a cohesive approach, not just for my book, but for promoting myself. So is it important to write out sort of the same way you would write a book description? Is it important to write out what your purpose is and your mission or what you want your readers to understand about you? Is that important to sort of kind of put that into a succinct thing, maybe for yourself only, but I'm sort of struggling with, what am I about? It's not just what the book is about, but what do I want readers to know about me? And is that something you've worked on or have people worked on?
Are you giving me softball questions? This is not a feeder question. I just want you to know. This is,
okay, sorry.
Hold on, I have to sit down now because now I'm starting to hurt this way.
Okay.
What in the HE double hockey sticks? Okay, oh my God. All right, so yes, this is, first of all, this is what I have every client do. Before we get started finding a pitch for your book or writing your query, we have to know who you are and how your book came to be. Even if it's a pitch for media or what to put on your website, if you can't succinctly sum up why you're relevant to the audiences who are going to find you relevant, then we have no anchor. So that is called a author package. And that is something that Anne, you and I will do in the Buzzworthy
Well, we
Lab.
don't need to take time now to talk about it.
Yeah, but it's important because everyone needs to know about it. Yeah. So the author package is something that you come back to and you decide up front and you put it in one place, a short bio, a medium bio, and you can have a long, like a one pager, but a second medium bio that's written in first person, because you will use them all the time. They will say, you will always need a bio that's 25 words because
I understand that part. I guess I was thinking more in terms of, okay, doesn't matter. We can talk about it.
But let me finish.
I was thinking more in terms of like pitching articles and things like that. I mean, to have
So we start with the bio because the first line of the bio is Anne Wright is a blank blank who writes about blank blank blank.
Okay.
And what you write about is not what your book is about or what happens in your book. It is, so when I was talking to Aileen, she was saying, well, this is what my book is about. I'm like, no, I think you need to take it up to 40,000 feet. You write about Jewish heritage and grief, that, long-lasting grief, and the dismissal of women's pain. And she was like, wait, what? Oh, yeah. I'm like, yeah, let's talk about it. Let's talk about what happens in the book and turn those into themes. And once you do that, and everyone has, I don't know, 3, 7, 15 themes, but I like to group them, so because we can say, love and loss, like, ugh, that's boring. You can say, I'm laughing because Mona's chatting and she's so good. So you can definitely say and this is what this piece is about, and you can change that through that, the 3 things based on what your pitch is about or who you're querying, and then that using those themes as a North Star, it really will define where your audiences are.
Okay, thank
And
you.
where that's called a strategic roadmap. So that then you decide, without like, so let's take what I'm talking about this book. So Aileen, this book is a memoir about her high-risk pregnancy, and her eyes were all on a high-risk pregnancy. Let me talk to women, but she had an expanded opportunity to talk about the bias in medicine, about how the medical community dismisses women's pain, and that it's just such a bigger opportunity. She also had a chance to talk about restoring a 100-year-old farmhouse. Those two things are super different, but they led her to different media outlets. I think she got a piece in like oldfarmhouse.com or Farm and Country. I can't remember what it was, but it was like superfarming.com. And then also maybe Newsweek, Washington Post, like something huge, because she's telling different stories. So long as you start with your key message, which boils down to your key themes, it will lead you where you need to go. And that's all part of the author package. You have to start with that package. It will also lead you to different podcasts. Podcasts are super easy to get on, but you have to think with Aileen, if she was only talking to pregnancy podcasts, how boring. She should be talking about empowerment or advocacy in the medical community. It just broadens you. Doing this, starting with a speaker package or an author package, also helps you identify who to ask for testimonials. Because if you're a food writer and you wrote a cookbook about, my friend Stephanie Weaver just wrote the migraine cookbook, and her pub date was this week. So if she had only asked her writer friends for testimonials, then who's she going to reach? Those people's writer friends. But she didn't. And if she had only asked other food writers, then she only reaches the audiences that follow foodies. But you have to go bigger, because your audience can be broader, because this is part of a Venn diagram. So there's your topics, there's someone else's topics, and you want this to be, take up more space. You want to reach more people, and these people are eager for your message. They just don't know it yet, because you are 2 degrees of separation from them.
Mm-hmm.
So you can really own that. We will talk about it more and more and more in the Buzzworthy Lab. We'll develop that, but also in this community, I do get asked a lot, like, how do I reach out for testimonials? Like, well, I have a template on that, but you have to have a strategy for it. This leads me to a question about what to expect from publishers. And I'm going to put you back on mute, but you can also ask a question if you want. You can raise your hand again. Recently, I have a couple clients who I help get agents and go through their negotiations. And you think that the agent actually helps all the way. The agent is super busy, and you're like, just like your realtor is not helping you pick out furniture for your new house. Like, the agent is like, great, I sold your book, but they're not helping you figure out how to live with this new publisher as much as people think. I think that there are all these love stories, like these urban myths of I love my editor and she really helped me crack the code on my book. That's for fiction. I'm not saying that is fiction. I'm saying I think that happens more in novels. I haven't seen that happen in nonfiction yet, but it's nobody's fault. It's just that there's, you know, a shortage of editors at publishers. What is interesting though is that the publisher expects that the writer will provide them with the testimonials. Do you see what I mean? Like, go ahead and send, you know, they say like, go ahead and send out, you know, so send us the testimonials you have and let us know who you want us to ask. And so my clients who are self-help and business writers in this situation, and they came back and they were like, can you look at this? I'm going to send it out. I'm like, I think you're asking like the wrong people for your testimonials, because you're asking people who do the same thing you do. So what does that get you? The audience that you already have. So how about we, instead of asking people an open-ended question, like, can you give me a testimonial? Here's my whole freaking book. Nobody's going to read your book except, I don't know, like Ann Patchett probably wants to read your entire book, not yours, probably not any of ours, but so they want to read essentially your back cover copy. And they want a selection of drafted testimonials that they can pull from that are crafted for and relevant to them. And it's your job to do that. And then you give it to them and say, would any of these work? I'm happy to draft it if you just even want to highlight some of the phrases that appeal to you. You know what came back from that? My client came back and she said, I can't believe it. The people you identified that I should ask have replied in the same day. And they said, these are the best blurbs I've ever seen. How did you come up with that? And of course she said, oh, well, I had Allison do it. And then and they don't know me. I mean, they were like, she might as well have said, I had my marketing strategist do it. But then her publisher said the same thing. And so I'm telling you, you can own your blurb strategy. You just have to think about expanding your audience, which starts with Ann's question, what do I write about? And what you write about is not your plot. It's, you know, the big picture. I have one more question that I need to get to before we have a couple, before we'll open up. And I'll read through the comments. I haven't been reading the comments yet. So Brian Watson couldn't be here today, but had asked a particular question about his query. And what he said, I'm just going to read it. I'm going to make this a little smaller so I can read his actual question, which is, it was essentially he's gotten only form rejections. He's been querying for a little bit, and I'm paraphrasing, he feels like his query is pretty good. What he said was, this is probably important that I read his actual note to me, which I pulled up, of course, and now I can't find. Okay, yeah. What he said was, I've received 12 agents have received queries. 2 were quick to reject, and I think that's good. A quick no is a good no, because it just means that they're the wrong people for you. But I think I want to wait a few weeks before querying more people. That's true. You should wait a few weeks before querying more people. And this is his 3rd round of querying. I'm not sure if the 12 agents is the 3rd round or in total. I like to query in groups of 10 or 12. But then again, my clients always get agent interest on the 1st round. So picking that 1st round is really important. His challenge, he says, is trying to know what this means. It's not the right fit for me. Do I take it at face value? I think my query letter is good, courtesy of Jane Friedman, who's an amazing business a coach for the business of publishing. But without more feedback, he's at a loss. And what I want to, so he asked a couple of questions, so I'm just going to answer them. 12 agents is good for one round. If that's your third round, great. Yes, you should wait, a week or 2 or 3, see which ones you get back and what they say. It's not the right fit for me means that your query is not working, or that you're querying all the wrong agents. Do I take it at face value? No, you own your query strategy. So I took the liberty of sharing or of asking Brian for his query, and I'm going to share it because I'm going to point at some things. If I can get back to that screen, share screen. Here it is. Okay, I'm just going to share whichever one comes up. Okay, so this, can everybody see this? Just nod because I'm looking at my screen over there. Okay. Dear Jill Marcel. So this is from Jill Marcel, is a big time, the agency is called Marcel and Lyons, and Kevin Lyon represents Rachel Hollis, who's a big women's empowerment coach. So already, Brian, I can see that this query is, there are a lot of paragraphs, and to me, it's hard to see where the where the details are. I like queries to have 3 distinct paragraphs and an intro and a dismount. It's, as agents are skimming, and I mean skimming, they need things to pop for them. So so what you've done is, there's a lot of story in here, and this says, dear agent, Carol, my college chaplain, had some advice for me in May of 1987 at the end of my junior year. Have you thought of coming out just to yourself? That is a great line, but you're using it as an intro, but it really is part of the plot. Don't start with plot. So you're sort of spilling the plot everywhere, and we need to know more. I would encourage you to pick out pieces of your query and group all of the elements of the premise together. And the premise includes the name of your book and the word count, and you don't have to say is a 72,000 word. Just put 72K word, 72K, it's good. Or you can say my 72K word hybrid memoir, Crying in a Foreign Language, the Deity That Answered My Plea, combines a life in and out of closets with glimpses into the cultural anthropology of queerness in both the US and Japan. The editors on the call will see that there are a lot of extra words in here. So we never need the word both. We get it. There are 2 things. We don't need both. And then you also have some language down here that's also premise language. So you say this hybrid memoir will appear, just say it. It will appeal to anyone, struggling with the closet and fans of blah, blah, blah. Two of these comic books are by celebrities, so I would remove them unless you are a celebrity. And what the promise of the book is here, fans of writers will find more to love as they experience the universal themes of growing up in an emotional isolation. So growing up in an emotional isolation is actually what your book is about. So that belongs up here. My hybrid memoir is about life in and out of closets and growing up in emotional isolation. It's my reminder that to take my ADHD medicine. And then it will also appeal to more people. No, just two, pick two, you're good. Your second big paragraph needs to be about plot. I'm going to go fast now, but if everybody can stick around, I'll still answer questions. Your plot is unclear. There's a lot more internal journey here than I want plot points. What literally happens? I move to Japan. I find a boyfriend right away, or I, bartend at a strip club. I don't know what you did because you don't give us enough detail of, you tell us a lot around it and the lessons and, you hoped a magical switch would flip. None of these are plot points. So you need 3 plot points. And then some kind of cliffhanger that's not rhetorical. Something, or like a promise to the reader, or what you're going to give to the reader. What does the reader get? So I would rework that piece. And then your dismount can literally be, so here's what I use. I say something like, as requested, my first 10 pages are pasted below, or my complete proposal and manuscript are available upon request. Whatever it is, they don't need more cajoling of like, hey, I queried you because of this. Like, no, you already got to do that up front. So that is my swift tips, and I do cover this in the Query Smart webinar that is free on the YouTube channel, and I will cut and paste the link into this right now so that if anyone on the call wants to look at it, it is, again, it's free. Free is good. And yes, Anne. Oh, hold on. Oh, you're leaving. Okay. I want to go and just read the Kim is, she's driving, or she's hanging out in her car, so she's turning off her camera. Okay. Mona says, Kathy, you made it. And Mona also says, I'll be back drugged up at the back doctor. Oh my gosh. Can you believe it? I have back problems. Candace is getting surgery. Mona and I have both had spinal fusions, and we're all at the back doctor all the time. Rachel, hi Rachel. Rachel is wondering, can I reuse parts of an article in a longer article? No. Nobody likes that. You would have to ask the new place if using already published content would be okay. And I can only think of, and so what they'll do is put an asterisk and say a portion of this has already appeared in blah, blah, blah. But it would probably work if the previously published phrases or paragraph were published in like a small niche audience, and then if you published in like Texas Magazine, or I don't even know if that's a thing. I think Dallas has a magazine, Houston has a magazine, Atlanta, or the Washington Post. So because they don't feel like they're competing. They don't have competing audiences. Yes. Hold on, you're on mute.
So I was hired to write a piece, and it was in Texas at a deaf Authors Festival. So they flew me out there, put me up in a hotel. I attended the festival and came back and worked like crazy writing the article. It was long because it's a complicated topic. Deaf people and their relationship to writing and to literature. So I wrote this long article. Then I pitched the Texas Monthly and got in, but my story is 8,000 words, and the Texas Monthly, I pitched their feature column, their feature department, and the email bounced back. So I pitched the arts and entertainment instead. And immediately within 15 minutes, they wrote back and said, we're interested. So, but they want it to be a 1,200 word article. And so I'm redoing the article. I have a couple of days only left, and I'm rewriting it and trying to pick out different pieces from the longer one that was very polished and very complete, and give it to them for their 1,200 to, they'll go up to 2,000 word article. But then I have so much remaining material that I thought I would try to pitch the magazine Poets and Writers.
You should.
The remaining material.
Well, right, but that's not the same thing that you're talking about. The extra writing that you did is it's content that needs to find a home. It's not, it's been published separately. So yes, you need to find a home for that, but pitch it, don't write it. And
some of it will overlap. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but the reason I said what I said is that some of the material will overlap. You know, there's some material that I'm putting in the Texas Monthly that any other article about the festival has to have that same material in it. I could reword it. But,
yeah, reword it.
Okay.
Yeah. What it's about, it might be about the same thing, but it's for a different audience. You know, just like, you know, Mona writes about growing up poor. She might tell the same anecdote several times, but differently. I write about the like crap that women call normal, but it's not normal and it's not okay. And I write about it in all different ways. So it's the same, but different. But I want to caution you from writing a huge piece versus a pitch. You have to know and do your research. If Texas Monthly isn't already publishing 8,000 word pieces, you don't, first of all, don't pitch one, but don't write it, because they work on spec. They don't want the 8,000 word. They would just want 2-3 paragraphs, maybe a couple. And I mean, the thing is, you're a beautiful writer, and I know you want to provide a comprehensive view, but perhaps the comprehensive view is your body of work, not one piece.
Yeah, I made a huge mistake. I've never written for a magazine. I've written articles, and that's the way I do them. I write the article, I polish, I edit and edit and edit. And when I'm finished, I pitch it, and it's been working for me so far. I got into HuffPost that way, you know,
Right. But HuffPost is looking for a first person essay. But if you're, you know, Texas Monthly or, you know, even Elle magazine, Marie Claire, they are editors. They are curating the content. They want to assign you as a journalist what to write. So now you have the street cred, and you have what I call the byline bundle. You know, you have Texas Monthly, you have HuffPost, you know what you write about. And you should be using the that list that we developed about where to pitch, but also use my freebie list of, you know, all the places to pitch your work. And, you know, but pick 8 or 10 and say, I'm just going to focus on these, because a no isn't a no to you, it's a no to the idea. And maybe it's not, maybe you need to pitch more evergreen things as well. So that, you know, you went to an event in Texas, you wrote about the event. So that piece has to come like quickly, right? But maybe you can write about, you know, play dates or like school plays, or, you know, I know that you're writing more about education too.
I have a question.
Yes.
I have an article that I'm really excited about. I was depressed recently, and I managed to change my mood by writing this article, giving myself 2 days to just devote to this article. And I completely turned my mood around. It's a really exciting one to me, but it's related to education. It's based on the idea that I believe I'm proposing that all children of any hearing ability, regular hearing, deaf, hard of hearing, anything, in all public schools, from elementary all the way up to high school, should be studying ASL. And it's a whole fantasy. It's not realistic. It's a total fantasy, but it is world changing. And I have many ways of proving that in the article and making the point. So my question for you is, do you have any advice about where I should post it? It's related to education, language.
Yes. I totally get it, but yes. And you asked, do I have advice on where you should post it? I have advice on where you should pitch it. You know, don't write the whole thing, because that story has 15 angles. So that story, that perspective can be told in Parents Magazine, in Romper, totally different. In you can write your first person perspective, that's an op-ed. You can get a couple of expert opinions, even if they are opposing opinions, that's even better. And you can get, and all you have to do is offer. I will also include expert opinions and perspectives from elementary school parents. Don't do the work, because the editor might come back and say, you know, I actually have an expert I'd like you to interview. And you'll be like, you'll say to yourself, I don't know that person, but whatever. Like, the point is that you get the byline, that you get to write that. So yes, so places you can pitch that. The Librarians Association has a really big publication, and nobody thinks to write for them. The National Teachers Association is a huge group of change makers, right? Poets and writers, any parenting magazine, and you could reach out to education reporters, but I think tying it to even the trend of seeing deaf and hard of hearing characters on TV, it's bleeding over to, like, awareness breeds compassion. And my own daughter is 11. Okay, let's assume, but you've met Daphne. My own daughter is 11. She already told me she wants to take ASL when she gets to choose a language. Well, at her middle school, they offer Italian. Who's going to use Italian? Spanish and French. And she was like, oh, I'm going to take Italian. And I'm like, you're taking Spanish because mommy is bilingual and Spanish is spoken everywhere. And just because we live in a town where there's a lot of Italian heritage, I don't hear any of those people actually speaking Italian. They're just all named Francesca. It's different. So what I told her is we can take classes together to learn ASL, and they teach it at the high school. So this is my commitment. But the thing is, you can tie that together. The reason why she knows about it, because she's met you several times, and because she sees characters, she sees herself in the characters on TV. So, my point is, any way that you can tie your opinion to, hey, because of this, we're learning that this is, maybe more community colleges are offering this as an option, which is where I'm going to have Daphne take this class. Or,
Can I ask one question on that before we run out of time? I grew up in a town where we did have ASL at high school. It was hugely influential to me just because I was suffering taking French. I was having a hard time with the Romance languages because my second language is Slavic. And so I was just having a hard time learning and so I was like, well, I really liked our ASL teacher. Everybody did. So I took 2 years. And it was life-changing. It was life-changing for a lot of my fellow students because they went in to study it in college, and one is a translator now, and another. So it just was, so I don't know if there's an affiliate periodical for educators. Like I don't, but I wouldn't know what to search. And then I guess another thing I would search is who's republishing any of those original articles. That's it. That's all I wanted to, because as someone who grew up in a town where we did have it offered, it was it completely advocate what you're trying to, like a message that you're trying to get out there. Because for us, it was, it just made me also feel like I could succeed at something, that I could learn something to fluency, where I was really struggling with French and learning it to fluency, even though I had a great French teacher. I'm not dissuading him. I just mentally had a hard time switching. It was, it was nice to learn, and nice to have meet a different community of people and learn a different thing. And she was also a really great teacher, and sometimes that changes things too. So I don't know if there's an association for them. I know that some of my friends that do translation for at a college level, they'll take on students and they'll go to class with them to make sure that that they have ample translation in larger settings. I don't know if there's an association for them. Does that, that's
I'm
just
sure there is. But I think that that's such a good angle for Rachel to pitch that too, is interviewing people who are now ASL translators who are hearing, and how that became their passion or their path. That's another way to personalize you have an opinion and facts, but stories sell. We need to see the people's experience.
And
the thing is that I don't want to, I want to really change the story that people know now, which is hearing people becoming interpreters. That's not where I'm going with the article.
Okay.
I want to say that, okay, if everybody learns sign language, there's so many benefits for hearing people, nothing to do with them earning money as interpreters, helping deaf people, nothing to do with that. There are so many profound benefits, both to hearing people, deaf people, hard of hearing people, late deafened people, older people losing their hearing. It's a different part of your brain that is used learning sign language than any other language in the world. It's a totally different part of your brain. So that means that people with learning disabilities can snap up ASL they can become fluent quickly, and it does something for their self-esteem that nothing else can do. And so they gain respect. And so many hard of hearing people, 1 out of every 5 people is going to become hearing impaired by 2025. That's the statistic I have from some national science organization. 1 out of every 5 will have a significant hearing loss. Well, these people later in life, if they're not connected to a deaf community, and most of them aren't, they're really lost. They're really full of problems, socially, educationally, career-wise. They marry a hearing person, but they can't hear them. And all of these people's lives, as well as older people who become deaf or hard of hearing later in life, and deaf children.
There are so many. Let me stop you there because we're way over time. But I want to point out that you are naming all these benefits of understanding, of like empowering people. And every time you give an example, I'm thinking, who can validate that and their story? So psychologists, parents of maybe mentally disabled people or neurodivergent people, certainly people who sought out wanting to feel more confident. So like Sita, she took ASL and it gave her more, maybe humanized more of her and tapped into her connection to more people. But also the people who then say, I feel so passionate about it, I'm going to pursue this in college, not because you can make a living out of it. That's not the message. It's that we're all together. We're all one. This is a benefit. Also, psychologists can validate, or neuroscientists can validate what you're saying too. You write the article, you pitch the article, but then you also say, I will include expert, 2 to 3 expert opinions and perspectives from parents or educators, other educators, because you're an educator. And that becomes a roundup story. It's just, that way it's not just you spouting facts and insights, because you always need to have that humanizing piece in there.
That's a great idea.
And I think you can do it. Don't write the whole article. That's like you saying to, I think I heard this recently on a podcast. It's like saying to me, like, hey, do you want a piece of cake? And I say, yes. You know which cake I love? Pineapple upside down. And you say, no, here, I already made chocolate cake. Here you go. And I'm like, but I don't want chocolate cake. You offered me cake. And I said, yes, but now you're telling me you only have chocolate cake. I want, as the editor or the media outlet, I want what I want. You're offering to write something for me. Don't tell me you already wrote it. Because then when I say, well, great, but can you make the pineapple upside down cake? You're going to say, well, I don't really want to because I already made the chocolate cake.
And I definitely agree with you. It was important. I feel very lucky that I got to grow up in a district that had like a specific point of view on offering courses for people. and so I don't, maybe there's a way to sort of back research that to find different districts across the country or across the world, and then see like how they're communicating, you know, and like via articles or via
What the effect
learning.
was, the benefit. Yeah.
It's just nice. It is nice to have diversity of learning, you know, not not just because you wonder too, like who decides that this is just the like how come one gets one type of curriculum and one does not, or one gets more limited or one gets more expansive. It should be expansive for everybody. It just people's curiosity should be allowed to go its full gamut. Sorry, didn't mean to.
Awesome.
And I hope I didn't say anything that I didn't mean to say anything that was like unintended or offensive. So I apologize. I just lopped on because it was life-changing for me at that point, because my junior and senior year were pretty hard. So it was nice to have classes that I could succeed in and meet other people that were succeeding. So yeah. So I hope your article gets published. It would, I guess what I want to say is I think it would be really helpful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, thank you guys. We're going to be back here, not on this Zoom. Actually, next week, Deb is using her Zoom because I tried to give my Zoom login to people. So you will get the Zoom details in the email. Thank you so much for being here. I love it. I love the engagement, and I love that, you know, anyone who wants to ask a question or answer or provide their perspective can. That's the whole point. That's why we're a community. That's why, you know, if you have something to say or something to share, do it. Okay. Thank you very much, and see you Wednesday, the 20th at 1 p.m. Eastern. All right. Keep writing. Bye.